For more than 2 decades, I have written in a diary almost every single day. And guess what? I saved them all. Each week, I will be reading from these archives and getting to know myself from the lens of my 10, 16, 25, and 36-year-old self. We'll explore big topics such as body image, queerness, divorce, addiction, mental health, and friendship. I'll read cringy poems and attempt to find compassion for the painful tenderness of my younger self. Join the drama of me and my guests as we explore our boy-crazy, closeted, angsty selves, one stupid page at a time. Hello, beautiful humans. I am finally in my podcast studio. Finally recording an episode. I've been away. Well, that's not true. I've been here. I've just been, I guess, unable to get to it and also taking a little rest. For those of you who don't know, I'm sure you all do, but for those of you who don't, my beloved dog passed away a little over a month ago. It's hard to believe it's been a month without her. And I have had nary a alone moment. That's right, I said nary. I'm reading a very old school book right now that's leading me to some older lingo. But pretty much right after my dog died, I took in Shiva's dog, Marley, who is a 2.5-year-old golden doodle with the most loving, adorable puppy energy. He's very obedient. He's very goofy. He's very chaotic. And I love him so much. But I actually just started loving him, which is what I kind of want to talk about today. This change in my life, I don't fully know where to start, but I will say that this grief has definitely changed me. Being a dog person, keeper, guide, mama, changed me, of course. But this grief has changed me, I would say, tenfold. I think of animals differently. And I think of grief differently too. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. I'm actually not going to be reading from a diary today, but I am going to go down memory lane and share some memories of my dog and kind of share just a little life update on kind of what's going on from here. I'm sure you can tell from my voice that I am pretty low energy. It's Monday late afternoon where I live. I have had it on my to-do list for the last probably 2 weeks to get in the studio and record something, but I've been really just protecting my energy and preserving it as much as I can. I've got a lot of other stuff that I'm dealing with right now, so low energy is definitely where I'm at. So it'll probably be a short episode. I have one word from one of my sponsors, and then I'm going to get into the episode. So enjoy, everybody. Enjoy this little walk down memory lane with my sweet girl, Gnowee. Hey, I want to talk to you about an awesome organization that I've been volunteering with for a couple of months. Exhale Pro Voice. It's estimated that about 1 in 4 people with uteruses will get an abortion in their lives, but we know that number is actually closer to 1 in 3. People can say a lot of things about what abortion is, but the one thing that it isn't is rare. People from all over North America access this free, confidential text line for after-abortion care and support. I've been a volunteer counselor for about 4 months, and I've met so many amazing people in my time there. It's a completely non-judgmental space for folks who have had or who will need abortions to go for resources, conversation, love, and support. We're here to listen on the line, and you can text us anytime at 617-749-2948. Again, that's Exhale Pro Voice, 617-749-2948. Volunteers are on the line weekdays from 6 p.m. to midnight, that's Eastern Standard Time, as well as Saturdays and Sundays from 3 to 9. Again, the number to text is 617-749-2948. This could be if you are someone who's struggling because you've recently had an abortion, someone who maybe might need an abortion in the near future and have questions. Maybe you're someone who loves someone who's really having a hard time after their abortion. Either way, we're here for you. 617-749-2948. Exhale Pro Voice. Text us. We're here. So, I adopted Gnowee in 2012, 13 years ago. It was summer. I only remember the season, I think, because there was a series of events very soon after we adopted this dog. So I'll start, actually, no, I'm going to go farther back from there. So I actually didn't really want a dog. I had dogs growing up, and I've always loved dogs. But I think by the time I was in my early 20s, I had experienced like a lot of loss and like people leaving or wanting to leave. And I just kind of wanted to protect my heart from that. I also was in a relationship dynamic that I kind of knew that if we got a dog as a couple, it was going to be me doing all of the work, essentially, which at that time in my life I wasn't really interested in. So I didn't really want to get a dog. But my then partner was persistent. He was persistent in a lot of things, we'll just say that. But definitely persistent in us getting a dog. I'm not even really sure why he wanted a dog. Probably for the same reasons a lot of people want to get a dog. And we decided to go through the Animal Rescue Foundation, ARF. And we were looking on the ARF website, and we saw this adorable puppy named Sedgwick. I don't know why I remember that. But we saw this dog, and I wanted this dog. He was like the dog for me. I can't remember the breed or any other details about Sedgwick other than his name. So we went through the process. We sent in the application, a lot of information from us, including, the regular questions. How often will you be home? And what will you do if this happens? And we filled out the application, got approved. Then we had a phone interview, which we passed. And then there was this lingering question of, is there a dog on, like a profile on the website that you like? And we said, yeah, we're really interested in Sedgwick. And we got a phone call a couple days later from the woman who was kind of the organizer of the organization. And she said, we don't think Sedgwick is the right dog because Sedgwick is highly social and would probably do better in a big household with like lots of people and children, and maybe even in some sort of like apartment. Like that's this dog is very, very social. And since you guys won't be home all day, every day, we think there's a better dog for you. And we were wondering if you wanted to meet this other dog named Gnowee. And we were like, Gnowee, what kind of name is Gnowee? And so we went to a couple days later, it was arranged, we were to go to the foster mom's home and meet Gnowee. And if everything went well in that meeting, a couple days later we could have her over, we could try a sleepover, and then if all that went well, then we could consider adopting this dog. So we go over to meet Gnowee, and she is so little. I was convinced she was going to stay that small. And she was in this lovely house with a bunch of other dogs. I think there was a Great Dane there, with this woman Lori, who just absolutely loves animals and fosters a ton of dogs through the Animal Rescue Foundation. And so we chatted with Lori, and then and she's kind of interviewing us. We're basically interviewing her. And she asked us if we want to, take Gnowee for a little walk. There's a park down at the end of the street. So we were like, sure. And so we walked to the end of the street, like literally the end of the street, not very far. And we're at the park. And she's got this long leash. And she walks like as far as she can on the leash. And she turns to us and she kind of makes this like head tilt. And then she jiggles her head and she just wrangles out of the collar. Like she just slipped right out. Like she knew how to do it. And she bolted. And she bolted into this like wooded area next to the park. And of course, we're panicked immediately. We start screaming her name and we collect ourselves really quickly. And my ex and I just look at each other and we're like, they are never going to let us have a dog, like ever, because we just lost this dog in the first like 3 minutes of walking her. And we just realized right away, okay, we have to go get Lori. Like we have to go tell her. And so we power walk back to Lori's house. And when we get there, Gnowee is sitting on the front stoop, just like with a little halo over her head, just like she has done nothing wrong. And Lori bursts out the door and is like, oh my gosh, how was your walk? Like, did you guys like each other? Like, she had no idea it had happened. So, of course, we didn't tell her, which was hilarious. And I'm looking at Gnowee thinking, you little rascal. Like, I just felt like she knew what she had done and she was so proud of herself. And in that moment, I was like, she's my dog. She is my dog. So it ended up being that Lori asked us, do you want to take her for the sleepover tonight? I think because she kind of had her hands full, and also it's better. I mean, the sooner you can find forever homes for these dogs, the better, right? So we kind of reluctantly agreed. So because, well, one thing, we weren't prepared to take a dog home that day. But the second thing was 2 days later, it was my partner's birthday, and I was throwing him a surprise party. So he didn't know that, of course. So I was thinking about, okay, if we take this dog for the sleepover and then she becomes our dog, and then we have a huge house party, like, how's that going to be? But I just was kind of like, I don't want to blow the surprise, and also I trust that, like, everything will work out. So we took her home. We take her home, and shortly after we get home, my partner has to go to work for the afternoon. And so he basically, like, gets us settled and then goes off to work. And then it's like me and Gnowee sitting in the living room staring at each other. And I just remember looking at her being like, so what do you do? And she's looking at me being like, so what do you do? And I just was like, okay, I'm just going to take her for a walk, because dogs like walks and we'll get to know each other on this walk. And we lived in Old South at the time. For those who aren't local London listeners, we lived in this kind of residential but like old neighborhood by the river. And I take her for a walk and she's chasing geese, and I remember someone stopped us and was like, oh, is this your dog? She's so beautiful. How old is she? And I was like, literally one day. I just got her today. And then yeah, so we have our day together. Again, I have many moments during that day where I'm like, she is mine, she is my dog. Something about her and I bonding that day, that first day. I don't think there's anything my partner could have done to sway her. She was my dog. Like, that's just the long and short of it. She was my dog. We were pretty much instantly forever bonded after that day. Nothing happened that day. Like, there was no momentous event. It was just I was hers and she was mine. And so the next day, I get up and my partner goes to work, and I'm like, I have to get ready for this surprise party we're throwing tonight. Like, literally, our house is going to be full of people this evening. So I leave Gnowee at home. It's her first time being home alone in our home. And I rush out, and I have to go to the grocery store. I have a ton of errands to run. I got to go to the liquor store. I got to go to the grocery store. I got to, like, get party decorations and all that. And at some point in my day, I'm not sure what stage of getting things done I was at, but I was driving downtown, and someone slammed on their brakes, and the person behind them slammed into them, and then I slammed into that guy. So I was in a fender bender. And it wasn't serious, and the person who caused the accident actually left the scene. So it was just me and this guy, and we have to go to the accident reporting center because there's, like, quite a bit of damage. I have to get my car towed. I have to call my boyfriend at work and tell him what's happened. And he's like, okay, I'm going to come home. And I was like, no, don't come home. Because, again, surprise party. So I get in this car accident, and I go to the hospital and get checked out. And all of my stuff is in my car, which has been towed to, like, the mechanic or the accident reporting center or whatever. So I basically don't have anything, and I don't have a car. So I think I called my sister, and she came to pick me up from the hospital. And then I, like, begged her to go to Costco with me, and we just got, like, chips and pop and whatever. And then I go home, and very soon after that, people start arriving. And I am, like, hunched over in pain because I hurt my back in the accident. And there's this puppy that's been alone all day and, you know, about to experience her first house party. In hindsight, I'm like, guys, I was, like, 25, okay? Don't judge me. So yeah, it was very not a good series of decisions, for sure. Very ill-planned. And the night was great, you know. His friends, my partner's friends all came. We definitely surprised him. He had no idea. We partied the night away with this puppy who everyone was adoring, and she was good. She was nervous, and I think she went and hid upstairs at some point, but it was good. It was a good night. And everything was smoother after that. So that was how Gnowee sort of came into our lives. After that, she was a couple years old when she had her first injury. She had a torn CCL. That just happened when she was running one day. And she stopped running. She made this yelping noise. And she started kind of dragging her leg behind her. Like, she really hurt her leg. And so she had surgery on her leg. Very expensive, but very worthwhile surgery. She was so young. She had so many years ahead of her. And I loved nurturing her during that time. During this time, again, I was in my mid to late 20s. My partner as well. We were living in this place in Old South, about to move to our place in Byron. I was working in restaurants and catering part-time, and my partner was working as a bartender. And when he wasn't home, I was usually home. Then there was a period of the day where neither of us was home, but we both got to spend a lot of time with her, I think, with Gnowee. And she was a happy dog. She was very social then. This was before her older years when she got a little bit antisocial, but I would take her to the dog park often, and she loved going to the beach. She loved going to the beach. And she liked other dogs, and she liked kids, and she liked everyone. And she was just, like I said, very happy dog. Always had a big, bright smile on her face. And I just realized, pause. I realized I never told you guys how she got the name Gnowee. So we did find out how she got the name. So basically, with this rescue and a lot of other rescue agencies, they don't like to reuse dog names. So a lot of the popular dog names are used up already. I'm trying to think of a popular dog name right now, and I literally can't think of any. So just those are all used up. And so they started looking into other languages and other cultures for names. And so Gnowee is from an Aboriginal Australian fable, I guess, about a woman who loses her son. And she's looking for him, and she travels the whole world over trying to find her son, and she can't find him. And so she lifts herself into the sky and becomes the sun so that she can see the whole world. And so Gnowee is the name of that sun goddess. And it was a perfect name for Gnowee because she was a sun goddess. She is a sun goddess. She was the kind of dog who always chased the sun, would find the tiniest beam of light in a room, was the brightest light in the room. She taught me a lot about the importance of getting out into the sun every day, of the simple joys of being in a sunbeam. So the next few years went on, and I can't remember what year it was in. It was probably maybe 2015 or so, 2016 maybe. My partner's mom had a medical emergency. She had a very serious stroke, and we decided to take in her dog, Gracie, who was a very chunky, slow-moving senior white lab. And she was just, oh my goodness, she was the cuddliest, most precious creature. And she came into our household seamlessly. And it was, we thought it would likely be temporary. Her and Gnowee, they didn't have very much in common. One was black, one was white. One was pretty big, one was kind of mid-size. One was old, one was young. And they had one sort of brawl. And then after that, they were essentially best buds. And I couldn't imagine separating them. And lots happened in those years. These years that before me and her became a family of two. So it was me and her and Gracie and my partner. And at some points, my partner's mom came to stay with us. And I loved walking them both. There was one time we went for a run. I had just taken Gnowee. Gracie was at home. I think maybe her legs were sore or something. Or no, it was because I went for a run. And Gracie wasn't a runner, but now I like to run with me. So I went for a run. And we stopped at the end of the run at the park near our house just so that I could rest for a few minutes. And so I'm resting. And I lay down. And I put the loop of her leash around my ankle as I would, and just kind of let her roam around in the grass around me. And so I'm laying down and I'm kind of meditating and I'm just breathing after my run. And I just hear this noise. And I look over and Gnowee is frothing at the mouth. And she's spitting and she's really uncomfortable. And I was like, what happened? What happened? And then I smelt it. she had gotten sprayed by a skunk in her mouth. Oh my God. It was so disgusting. It was so disgusting. Thankfully, I was like 3 minutes away from my house. And so I'm like dragging her to the house, and she's like, she's really like, she's vomiting and she's like, it's really bad. And I get her home, and I don't let her inside the house. I bring her to the backyard, and she's on the porch, and I'm like screaming through the screen door to get like, to get help. And she puts her face up against the screen door, and Gracie is on the other side of the screen door inside, and they kind of like put their mouths together, and then Gracie just throws up. It was like the nastiest thing. It was such a stressful day. Like, oh my goodness, I'll remember that forever. It was such a bad day. It wasn't the only time she got sprayed by a skunk, by the way. She got sprayed multiple times, but that was by far the worst time ever. Oh man. And then a couple years after that, we opened our restaurant. And that was, I would say, whereas the years earlier had been happier years, those years weren't very good for me, but also probably for Gnowee, because we were never home. We were always at the restaurant, and at that point I had hired both a house cleaner and a dog walker, which is not the life that I wanted at all. And I mean, I've written a whole book about why I decided to open that restaurant, despite not wanting that life, which you can read, but I won't get into it now. What I will say is that I felt very sad about leaving her, both of them, alone for most of the day. And it wasn't the kind of life I wanted, and it wasn't the kind of life I wanted for my pets. So that was hard. And then when I left my ex and my restaurant behind, moved back home with Dad, again, wrote a whole book about it, but we went through, I would say, a 2 or 3 month period where we were trying to kind of share our dogs. Gnowee always felt like my dog, but she was definitely our dog for sure. And Gracie was his family dog, but she definitely felt like my dog. I took care of her. I walked her. I fed her. I paid for her vet bills. I cuddled her. And so after we split up at the end of August, we had another month until the end of September on the lease of our apartment. And so we had this arrangement. I can't remember what it's called when parents do it, but basically whoever was staying at the house stayed with the dogs, and then we'd alternate. So I got to spend time with them while I was moving into my dad's house. And then my dad agreed, that I could come and live with him, and he was happy enough to take Gnowee in as well, because he knew Gnowee. She was my dog, and we spent a lot of time there. And he was nervous about the idea of taking in 2 dogs, and he asked me, is Gracie coming with you when you eventually move in here with Gnowee? And I said, I don't know. And then I talked to my ex about it, and I think we were both hopeful that we could share them. And we did that for a short while, but then, stuff happened again in a book, but stuff happened, and I decided that I was no longer willing to be in any kind of relationship with him. And that meant that one of us or both of us was going to have to say goodbye to one or both of the dogs. This is a really complicated thing that happens in separations. Obviously, with children, it's a lot more complicated. I'm not denying that, but it's hard with animals. I suppose in an ideal situation, you get along and you can share, but I don't know. I don't know if that's as crucial with pets as it is with humans, or maybe it is. I just couldn't do it. And I don't feel bad about that because I know for sure it was the right thing. So it was in by the winter, by November, December, I had my what I knew was going to be my last visit with Gracie. And I said goodbye to her. We went for a walk, and I pet her one more time, and I said my goodbyes, and I was devastated. I was gutted. I was so heartbroken about that. And I was grateful that I still had Gnowee. And it was time for her and I to like start our life together. And we did. And for the next year, we stayed at my dad's out in the country. I think that was maybe the happiest Gnowee has ever been that year. 2017 to 2018. And she was about 5 or 6 then, and still very much a puppy. Still required a lot of care and energy and lots of walks every day. But we lived out in the country. We had an acre. We had a field behind us, a forest behind us. She loved being an off-leash dog. And she loved living with me and my dad. She loved it. And it was nice, having care for her when I was out, when I go into the city, or when I was, by then I had started dating and all of that. And then in 2018, it was time for me to go out on my own. And I got a little apartment, and Gnowee and I moved, and it was just her and me for the first time. And we lived there together for a year until we moved into where I live now. And then we spent 5 years here together. We moved in early 2020. And, or I guess 4 years. And maybe these were the happiest years of her life. I would say some of my best memories. I mean, I'm not going to lie. 2020 was a rough. I mean, it was rough for everybody, obviously. And a few days before that first lockdown in March, my grandmother passed away. And then the pandemic started. And then the protests started. And I don't know how I would have ever got through those months without my dog. It was so lonely. I was watching my friends who have young children at home, who were in marriages, who had roommates, struggle because all of a sudden they were locked in their houses with all these people and they couldn't find a moment of alone time. And I was living the exact opposite life, where I would go days, weeks without touch, human contact. And my dog, she kind of saved my life at that time. Yeah, I would say she saved me from certain darkness, for sure. And we bonded like crazy during that time. And yeah, we spent the next couple years just exploring the neighborhood, and it was really hard. I was away from her for a whole summer when I went to the East Coast after Jason's accident. And my dad took care of her, and I never wanted to be away from her for that long again, I knew. And having her just be at home with me all those times that I was in a deep depression, when I couldn't get out of bed, or when I was sick, when I had the flu, when I had COVID twice. She was just there, and like all animals, she loved me unconditionally. She loved me in a way that needed nothing. It I didn't need to shower or brush my teeth or speak. Some days, like most, she required nothing from me and gave so much love on the days that I just like couldn't give love. She made up for it, you know? Okay, I'm gonna get into the hard part, into her last days. But let's take a little break. So, in Gnowee's 13th year, she started really showing her age. Actually, she was showing her age for a couple of years, or at least a good 2 years, I would say. Just little things. She was slower on walks. We went from 2 very long walks every day to a long one and a short one, and then to 2 short ones, and then to just 1 short one. And she probably for a good couple years, her eating habits were strange, and she would go on, my dad always called them hunger strikes, where she would go like a good full day and a half without food. And then when she did eat, it was only when I would sprinkle cheese or, you know, something really tasty on her food. And she would get sick sometimes, you know, she'd throw up her food sometimes. But it wasn't concerning enough to take her to the vet, and she had regular checkups, and there was never anything out of the ordinary. So in early May, she went on one of her hunger strikes, but I noticed some other symptoms too. She seemed to be in pain when she walked, and this wasn't totally unusual because, like I mentioned earlier, she had torn her CCL when she was a puppy, and she had some other injuries and stuff. So she was old, so she would kind of, it would be harder for her to move some days. But she seemed to be having a really hard time walking. And she just didn't seem quite like herself. So we went about our business on Monday, and I called the vet, and they said we can get her in first thing tomorrow. So Tuesday morning, I take her to the vet, and she hasn't eaten in a day. And she's just not well. And they do some tests, and they say her blood levels are, you know, like there's some levels that are a little bit off, but nothing too concerning. And the doctor said, I'm going to give her these pills to stimulate her appetite, and hopefully we can get her eating, and then also here's some pain medicine. But nothing crazy seems, you know, like nothing really bad is happening here, we don't think. So I take her home, and the next 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, are really tough. They're more of the same, and she's not eating, and she doesn't want to go for a walk. She'll only go outside to use the bathroom. And I can just tell. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I could just tell. I was like crushing up these pills. Like, I had to get her to eat the appetite stimulating pill so that she would eat the food that had the anti-nausea pill in it, because then she had to eat the pain pill, but she couldn't have it on an empty stomach. And it was just this cycle, and I'm like, what kind of life is this, you know? And she was just unhappy, ears down, tail down, not eating much at all. And so I don't know how to say it. I just knew. And so I spoke to the vet again, and the vet said, she's an old dog, and it sounds like something's happening in her abdomen. And we can do some tests. We could do an ultrasound or an MRI. For that test, she'd have to be put under, so that's a big stress on a dog. And those tests might show nothing, and that would be very expensive. But if those tests do show something, what are we going to do? Like, are we going to perform massive surgery on a 13-year-old dog that's like not in the best health? Probably not. And the truth is like, I probably would have, because I wanted her to live forever, but there's something inside me that just knew. She didn't want to go on like that. And she didn't want me to have to go on like that. And I know because she told me. And so then I made a different phone call to a different vet, somebody that came highly recommended to me, that would come to your home and perform end-of-life care. And I realized right after I reached out that the likelihood that I was going to hear from her on the weekend was probably pretty slim. So I had a backup plan if things got worse over the weekend, but I didn't want to take her to the vet to do this because, well, if I'm being honest, I just don't really like my vet. I don't think she's a very warm person. I don't think she really likes animals. I don't know why she's a vet at all, but it didn't feel right to have her do this end-of-life care, and I knew that as well. So I contacted this specialty vet on Friday and got an auto reply that said they'd get back to me on Monday. So I thought, well, hopefully the weekend goes okay. So I kind of cleared my schedule for the weekend, and as the weekend went on, Gnowee's condition got worse and worse. She was eating less and less, not eating her favorite foods. I tried pepperettes, cheddar, ground beef, tuna, yogurt, peanut butter, chicken. About the only thing she really ate was I accidentally brought home a rotisserie chicken, and she wanted to eat that. So that was good. But she really wasn't eating much. And she also wasn't drinking very much. She was drinking just the tiniest amount of water, and that was very concerning. And she could barely get up to go outside to use the washroom. So by the time that specialty vet called on Sunday, I said, like, when can we do this? It's time. And she said, we can do it tomorrow if you want. So less than a week after that initial vet visit, she was gone. The experience of saying goodbye to her was everything that I could have ever wanted and everything she could have ever wanted, in the sense that she was surrounded by the people who loved her most. The vet that we hired was extremely compassionate and loving. She was calm, and she wasn't afraid. And I was calm, and I wasn't afraid. And yeah, I had the morning alone with her. She had a lot of visitors on the weekend because I started messaging people saying, hey, this is what's happening. Come have a visit. So she had a lot of visitors. And then on Monday morning, I got up early and spent the morning alone with her. And then Shiva came over, and he had some time with her. And then we got her into the car, and we had one last car ride. I sat in the trunk with her, and we just smiled and felt the wind in our hair, and it was really beautiful. And then we got her to my dad's porch and waited for the vet, and we fed her a can of sardines, her favorite food, which she barely touched, which was really sad. But she got a little burst of energy. It was quite strange because, like I said, the day before she'd barely been mobile, and she got this little burst of energy. And so we decided to walk around the property with her. And we walked to the backyard, a place that she loves. My dad's got a huge garden out there, plants galore. And my dad kind of showed us the spot that he had picked out where we might bury her and asked if that was an okay spot. And my dad told us this story of how the night before, because he had kind of cleared a spot, that the night before he was out in the garden and the cat laid down on the spot. And he said it was really strange because, like, the cat never lies here ever. I've never seen her here ever. And so we thought that was a good place for Gnowee to be laid to rest. And Gnowee sniffed around the spot and I think approved. And she just had this little burst of energy, and she kind of trotted along the yard. It was the first time I'd seen her out walking in a week, and it brought me so much joy. And we sat under the peach tree and had a little cry with Shiva. And then by the time we made it back up to the porch, the vet was there. And I think if there were a moment that I would have questioned if I was making the right choice, it would have been then. But I just didn't. Like, I just said, I'm ready. We're ready. And so we decided to move inside because it was quite chilly and windy out that day. And so we moved inside into the living room. And Gnowee was curled up on the dog bed. Her energy was kind of zapped then. And the vet told us what was about to happen. If you've ever been through this, you know exactly what happens, but I won't get into the details. But basically, there's 2 drugs administered. The first essentially puts them to sleep, and the second is the one that I think stops their heart. So she administered the first medicine, and again, Gnowee was very calm, and she closed her eyes, and I knew that would be the last time she closed her eyes. And her breathing slowed, and I really didn't think I was gonna cry until after, but I wept, and Shiva cried, and my dad stood behind us strong and kind of gripped my shoulder, and Shiva and I held each other on the ground. And the vet said she went to go put her stethoscope on her heart, and I said, she's gone. I just knew. And the vet said, yeah, she's free. And it was such a kindness that I hugged her. I hugged the vet, and I told her that she was an angel. And she asked if we wanted her to stay, and we said no, we're going to go bury her, and we'll be okay. And so my dad and Shiva went out and prepared the ground. Actually, my dad went outside, and Shiva was getting ready to go help him, and he said, okay, you wait here with her, and we'll come get you when we're ready. And I said, no, I don't want to wait here. I didn't want to be inside anymore. I didn't want to be alone with her in that way. So we actually carried her to the yard, and I laid down with my head on her body while my dad and Shiva prepared the ground. It took, I think about 20 minutes, and I don't remember any thought in my head during that time. I just laid on her body. I pet her. I tried to just absorb the last of her, and then we buried her. Yeah. Now he's not the first animal that I've buried. She's not the first creature that I've loved that's died. But she was a huge piece of my heart, and I knew that going home after that was going to be really, really tough, and I knew that life for the next couple days, weeks, months was going to be really, really hard. And Shiva was, we actually hung out at my dad's house for a while, my dad and Shiva and I, and we talked in the living room. And I think I ate some candy, and Dad made us a cup of tea, and we talked, and then Shiva and I decided to go home. And we're driving back to my place, and I just looked at him and said, I don't want to go home. Please don't take me home. Take me anywhere but home. And he said, okay. And we actually went back to his place and took a nap. When I woke up from the nap, I cried a lot, and he held me, and he said, I think we should go to the beach. I think we should be by the water. And I agreed. It was a very good idea. And so we drove about an hour out of town and went to this really quiet beach. This is early May, so there's no one on the beach when we arrive. And we get out of the car and we start walking down the beach. And we just alternated. He would cry and I would hold him, and I would cry and he would hold me. We skipped stones, and we talked to Gnowee and just cried. And we were walking back to the car. We had walked for quite a while, and the sun was setting. And we started walking back to the car, and like along the beach, and we see this woman with 2 dogs. And we're walking towards each other, so like there's no way we could avoid her at all. And so as we're approaching, one of the dogs is barking at us, and she's laughing, and she's, kind of waving at us and trying to chat with us. And we get closer to her, and she sees that I'm just weeping. And she looks at me and she goes, like, honey, are you okay? And I just start crying, and I just say, we said goodbye to my dog today. And she started crying, and she asked if she could hug me. And we talked about Gnowee with her. And then the 3 of us and these 2 dogs that we just met stared out at the water. And it was one of those sunsets where it was cloudy. It was quite cloudy, but there was like a break in the clouds, and the sun was just like piercing through it. And we all just looked up, and this woman, she was like this, she's probably in her 60s. She was really tiny. She was this really thin, short lady. And she threw her arms up into the air and just shouted, Gnowee. And I haven't told that story yet. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful to tell it now. So that is the story of Gnowee's life and death. She certainly lives on, and always will. Which brings me back to why I realize I said this was going to be a short episode, but I haven't even gotten to my point yet. So, so in the days after Gnowee's death, I eventually, I went home. I stayed at Shiva's for a few days, but then I went home. And the quiet in my house was so unfreaking bearable that I think I called Shiva and said, you need to bring Marley over here. I need a dog. There needs to be a dog in the house. Like, I can't. It was too quiet. And then I don't know if anybody had asked me, but maybe I just asked myself, like, I wonder if I'll ever get another dog someday. And I think when people lose a pet, like, some people never get another dog. Like, my sister, when she lost her dog, she said, she's never going to get another dog. And she's had, a partner get a dog. And I've asked her, I'm like, do you even love this dog? And she said, my dog loving quota is full. Like, I'm never going to love another dog as much as I love Layla. So, like, that's it. I've had my one dog love story, So that's one camp of people. And there's another camp of people that at some point decide to get another animal and love it the same as they, like, in a different way, but just as much as the animal that they lost. And then there's the other camp of people who jump into another dog right away. Like, within a week they have another animal. And I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do it. I think all of these ways work. I think they're all valid. I think they all make sense. And I was eager to find out which camp I fell into. And I think, unlike when I got Gnowee, when I was 25 or so, I'm actually in a place where getting a dog would be a very smart decision. I work from home now. I'm home all the time. I'm much more stable. I could give a dog a loving home. But there's a couple life considerations that I had to make. One is, like, I don't really know if I could kind of afford a dog right now. The stress of Gnowee's vet bills have really put a weight on me over the last couple of years. The other thing is I am planning this huge trip in the winter to go to India, and I'm going to be gone for like a month. And do I want to ask somebody to watch my dog? By that I mean, do I want to make my dad deal with the puppy? So I thought about that, and I thought, okay, so if I do get another dog, it's not going to be right away. And then maybe I belong to that first camp I mentioned, where maybe I don't get another dog, and maybe I don't open my heart up to this kind of grief again. Because, since my sister's dog died, I've never really understood her when she said to me, no, I'll never love another dog again. And I understand it now. I definitely understand it now. I'm not saying that that's my path, but I totally understand where she's coming from. And I don't know how willing I feel to let my heart ache like this ever again, There's so many dogs that need homes, and like I said, I think life is just better with a dog, but I definitely have a bit of fear around it as well. So then there's that other camp that jumps right into a dog right away. And I can't remember who it was, a poet that I follow. I'm trying to think of who it was right now. A poet that I follow was sharing on Instagram recently that, their dog had passed away, and they were lolling about the house, feeling very depressed and really sad. And then they heard this voice that just said, "You should just get another dog." And so, like, less than a week after their dog passed, they got another dog. And now that's their dog, and it's curbed their sadness. And so I was like, maybe that's what I'll do. And I still don't really know where I land. I don't have another dog, but what I have done is I am taking in any dog that will have me. So two things. One is I have become co-parent to Shiva's golden doodle, Marley. And I've always liked Marley. He's a very good dog. I mean, how could you not like a dog? But I would say that I like him. You know, like he's kind of like, he's part of the family, but he's like your goofy, like, brother that, like, you know, is just there. But now that I've spent a lot of time with Marley and I've gone to sleep with him and woken up with him and been responsible for him, now I love Marley. I've fallen in love with this dog. So the other thing that I've done is I have joined an app called Rover, which is a dog sitting app, pet sitting, I guess. And I have met a bunch of really cool dogs on the app. So I've met Gunner, the husky. I've met Scotch, the golden retriever. Just today I have a miniature poodle named Winnie, as in Winnie the Poodle. On the weekend I had a wiener dog. It was such a little goober. I've watched a 6-month-old doodle named Rex. So yeah, I've had a bunch of different dogs in my home, and they keep me company. And here's what I want to say. I've always thought of love as a slow burn. In some ways, I have a core belief that says love and admiration and affection and reverence must be earned. Because I feel like I have had to work hard to earn love and admiration and affection in my life. Whether that's true or not, that is what my experience has been. That has shaped my core beliefs. And dogs teach you that that need not be true. And since Gnowee's been gone, I have allowed that to be a two-way street. And so when someone drops their dog off for dog sitting, I make it my mission that dog, by the end of the day, that dog will love me and I will be its favorite person. And the way that I do that is, well, I give them a safe environment. I give them alone time. I give them treats when they're ready. I give them cuddles. I make sure they have water. I walk them. I talk to them all day. But what I also do is, as soon as they enter my home, I get down on the ground or on the couch or wherever they are, and I look at them and I say, I already love you. And I mean it. Because that's how Gnowee loved me. From that first time we met, you know, she was saying, I really want you to be my person. And she loved me instantly. And I didn't have to do a single thing. And I just wonder what life would be like if we all found a way to love like that. To show up in a room full of people and just know they already love me. One of my writing coaches taught me this. Before these dogs taught me this. She has a phrase that she uses in her writing spaces where she says, let's pretend like we all already love each other. And just how that simple thought kind of changes the way you go about your life and your work and your friendships and a date. Imagine on a first date you show up and think and with the attitude of they already love me. Like there's nothing I need to be, there's nothing I need to do. I don't need to impress them. Imagine you showed up that way in a job interview, you know? And so I'm giving this back to the dogs. And it's been really beautiful to keep my heart open that way. I miss Gnowee so much every single day. And I would do anything to just walk into the living room and see her lying on her dog bed and walk up and pet her. And I miss her, and I don't know if I'll ever stop writing poems for her. And these other dogs that I'm spending time with are filling a hole in my heart, and it's good enough for now. And today, this dog came, Winnie, and she was so anxious when she got here, and she was just pacing the house, and she peed on the floor, and I got her up to sit on the couch and be calm for a couple seconds, and I just got my face close to hers, and I just said, I already love you. I love you so much. And then we just had the best day. And if I practice this one principle, I'll never be alone a day in my life. Because I'll always be surrounded by people and animals that I love. So I'm choosing not to hide my love away. I'm choosing not to close my heart off. And if that's the only thing I do today, then that's a pretty big thing. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. For those of you who could bear it. And I think I'll be back again soon with some diary entries. But I do hope you enjoyed the episode. I appreciate you so much for listening and sharing my dog's life with me. And I hope you all are able to keep your hearts open for whatever comes next. If you are considering getting an animal, please consider adopting. There's a lot of dogs and cats out there that need homes, and I can confirm that rescue pups make the absolute best pets. I would encourage you, if you're local, to check out ARF, the Animal Rescue Foundation. And if you have a pet in your life already, I encourage you to go scoop them up and give them a big hug, because they're here, and you're here. And you already love them, and they already love you. All right, everybody.
you.